Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We are very likely about to have some severe space weather here on Earth as a result of this new active region that's just now rotating into view on the Earth-facing side of the sun. It does not have a number yet. It will be given one soon, but this sunspot group is very active. Grew tremendously while it was on the far side. We see that activity right here as it rotates towards the eastern limb solar coordinate system, and that is a sort of electrical and plasma crackling and bustling activity that you usually see before high M class or even X class solar flares. So this sunspot group has already been very active over the past few days. We have our coronagraph imagery, which shows all those coronal mass ejections launching off to the left. That's again to the east solar coordinate system. Now it's going to be rotating to view. So we can expect radio blackouts on the sunlit side of the Earth anytime there's a big solar explosion from that sunspot group or another. And then if it launches coronal mass ejections our way, that could impact us if it's really quick in about 24, maybe even less hours than that, but typically 2 to 3 days. It depends on that velocity. And when you get that impact is when you get a geomagnetic storm. Earth's magnetic field undergoes these big swings in field strength, and you have these powerful electric currents that are generated all across the Earth energy onion, as I call it, the plastosphere, the ionosphere, atmosphere, and even in the ground surface. And then that creates some longer term geophysical energetic changes on our planet. So we've had a lot of activity from the sun over the past 6 to 8 weeks from some new solar flux that's pushed out new sunspots. And now we're getting a second wave of this from this big sunspot group in the southern hemisphere. And while all this has been happening, we still have interstellar object 3I Atlas close into the solar system. And in fact, the latest imagery released today by Michael Yeager and Gerald Raymond show that that sunward facing jet/tail has become even bigger. So we're seeing anomalous activity from interstellar object 3I Atlas. We're seeing a ton of solar activity from the sun, soon to be Earth facing. We've had a ton of volcanic eruptions over the past week or so, and we had a burst of earthquake activity yesterday with that magnitude 6.6 earthquake near Sinabang, Indonesia, and then also that magnitude 6 quakes giving in Alaska. So that and much more in today's video. To see just how active these sunspot groups are, let's look at our coronagraph imagery going from the end of November 25th Universal Time up to the present moment today. This is our black and white view, and we see here all the activities off to the left. That is the east solar coordinate system, and that's because these sunspot groups in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere are rotating towards Earth facing. So if they were just having rotated off of Earth facing, they'd be blasting this direction, but instead they're getting closer and closer towards us. So look at that. Back on the 25th, we had coronal mass ejections. Going all the way through the 26th, we had coronal mass ejections. Into the 27th, yesterday, we had coronal mass ejections from these sunspot groups. Non-stop activity. And that does not mean it's going to continue to, when it's Earth facing, to get blasted by non-stop activity, but that I would say is the most likely possibility. So they could cool off, but generally at these sunspot groups is they kind of have like a broad activity timeline. So they start off and they build and build and build, and then they start to die down. This looks like we're reaching kind of the peak of that. And so it's probably going to swing through Earth facing and blast nonstop solar storms our way. Just a little less than a month ago, we had a lot of X-class flares and we had a G5 minus geomagnetic storm. So there were 3 hours during that storm where we hit G5 levels. Most of it was G4, G3, G2 levels. So we very well could have a repeat of that. We could have something even stronger. I wouldn't be surprised seeing the activity of these sunspot groups. In fact, this sunspot group down in the southern hemisphere, it's so large that we were able to observe it from Mars using the Mars Perseverance rover and its mass cam. So the fact that some little rover on Mars, which is on the other side of the sun right now, could pick up that sunspot group with its limited optics tells you that it is very large. It's like 15 Earth diameters across or larger. We'll get some views of it in terms of the sunspot intensity grams and the magnetograms really nicely in about 2 days or so. So it will be Earth facing and direct in 1 week's time, and starting in about, I'd say, 4 days, that is really when we enter into that window when it could launch coronal mass ejections out into space and have those actually hit Earth, and then for about an entire week after that. So we are looking at the first week of December being very, very dynamic as it relates to solar activity. And that's not just solar storm impacts, it's also radio blackouts from any explosions that occur on the sun, and those light photons 8.3 minutes later hitting the sunlit side of the Earth, causing there to be an ionization event of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere. And that change in the plasma frequency and also the electric field potentials causes there to be problems with radio communications and GPS and more. So this is looking to be very dynamic. And then there's also all the normal geologic, geophysical changes that can unfold from this. And it's not just these sunspots, there's also a large trans-equatorial coronal hole, which will hit us with a high-speed stream right around the same time as this. Let's check it out. Here we have our 211 angstrom view of the sun. So you can see these coronal holes on the sun. The corona is the outermost atmosphere of the sun. It's very highly vibrational, made up of high temperature plasma, millions of degrees Kelvin. When there's a deficiency, there's a low density zone in the solar corona, it shows up as these coronal holes. The magnetic field in those zones extends far out into space, and that accelerates and transports that plasma out into the interplanetary field, which could then sweep by the Earth because we're just that one astronomical unit. We're very close to the sun. So we just had this trans-equatorial hole hit us with this high-speed stream, raising geomagnetic volatility on our planet for multiple days now. Basically, we're in a long G1 to active conditions geomagnetic storm. Look at this new trans-equatorial hole right there that is now rotating to view. In fact, this one has been active on the sun for a very long time now, for many months. And in fact, that coronal hole high-speed stream impact and then us going into a low density regime of solar wind has been perfectly timed with a whole bunch of high magnitude earthquakes, magnitude 7+. So we could also be looking at elevated earthquake activity as a result of that impact, but you'll notice that this is just in front of these very active regions. So we're gonna have that high-speed stream impact right when it's in that geoeffective position when these sunspots are right Earth-facing direct. So that's gonna be very, very dynamic. And if it launches, these sunspots, if they launch some very high velocity solar storms, and we're already in a high velocity solar wind regime as a result of that coronal hole high-speed stream, they could reach Earth even faster. They're usually slowed down. Solar storms are slowed down when they encounter high density plasma in front of them. And they form what's known as a co-rotating interaction region. If there's no high density walls of plasma in front of them, they can race to Earth basically unobstructed and hit us at their maximum velocity. So that is a dynamic that is effectively in play right now as a result of this trans-equatorial coronal hole being there. We'll have to wait and see if it breaks up at all or disappears, but it's been active for months now. So I don't think that's likely, though we do see 3 tiny active regions there embedded within it. So that is quite interesting. But in general, because of this factor, because of the sunspots, because of radio blackout possibilities from just the fact that there are explosions on the Earth-facing side, sands, solar storm impacts, or anything, we have a very active 2 weeks ahead of us as it relates to space weather. And we're already feeling the energetic effects of this here on Earth. We can see that very nicely by looking at our X-ray flux over the past 7 days as measured by geostationary satellites. And so we see that we were down here at this high B class, low C class zone. And as a result of those sunspots slowly rotating into view, and then being very, very active, you can see that we are now in the middle C-class range. But if I put my cursor here, we can get a value for our low point, which is, I would say, right about here. That's 6 to the -7. And if you go to there right now, it's 2 to the -6. So we've gone up nearly an order of magnitude. There's nearly been a 10x increase. And if we actually measure to one of these peaks there, we have gone up more than 10 times in terms of X-ray flux. A very highly vibrational wavelength of light, that's X-rays. Also, extreme ultraviolet light production goes way up from these solar explosions, and that gets absorbed directly into the ionosphere, a very critical component of the global electric circuit. So the ground of the Earth, the crust, the oceans are very conductive. The ionosphere up about 50, 100 kilometers going out to space is very conductive. The atmosphere in between is very resistive. This energy comes in from space, hits the ionosphere, builds up the electric field potentials, and creates a stronger electric current flowing through the atmosphere, which influences weather systems and more. So If you have, for example, a weather system that's already forming and then you increase that electric current flowing through the atmosphere, it basically just intensifies whatever's already building, existing, etc. It can also make the weather more volatile. So as it relates to just our typical day in, day out weather, this is a dynamic that influences that. And then of course, the atmospheric conductivity and some of these other factors related to global electric circuit, they influence other geologic and geophysical processes on the planet, like volcanoes and earthquakes. So we don't know exactly how. We're still very much figuring that out. Our data on this is limited in a geologic sense. There is undeniably a connection between the two. So we also observe that. So we're already seeing though this energetic increase, and this sunspot group in the southern hemisphere hasn't even really rotated into view yet, but we're already up an order of magnitude, which is wild. And something else that is wild is 3I Atlas. We have this latest image here from Michael Yeager and Gerald Raymond. This is 7 160-second exposures, super long exposures, which are needed to resolve these very faint details. And look at that sunward facing jet or tail. Just call it a jet, call it a tail, whatever. Very anomalous, very bizarre. It has gotten larger over the past few days. So 3I Atlas is now moving away from the inner solar system. It is slowly deaccelerating because it's going to be at its fastest during its perihelion, its closest approach to the sun. It was also at its brightest during perihelion. Now it's slowly dimming down. It's about 11 in apparent magnitude at this moment. It reached about 9.5 or so, maybe a little brighter around perihelion. But this forward jet tail that's facing the sun appears to be getting bigger day by day. And it's very rare to see something like that. And most of the time, when you see a sunward facing jet tail, it's an optical illusion based off of the position of the comet, the sun, and the earth. But we've been seeing this the whole time, no matter the perspective. So this is very odd. We don't really have a good explanation of it. It's related to how the gas and the dust is basically pumping off of the nucleus and how that's then reflecting sunlight out. Of course, you can't talk about comets and interstellar objects like this if you don't bring up plasma. The universe is 99.9% plasma. The moment you put gas and dust in space, they usually will ionize and take on a charge. And so it becomes a complex dusty plasma called complex because the physics is insane. And so this interstellar object here has this very bright coma, has this diffuse tail behind it, has some other jets, and it really has this strong sunward facing jet, which I find very interesting. Thanks to Michael Yeager and Gerald Raymond for this fantastic photo from just recently, today, this morning, November 28th. Now, as many of you know, there was a magnitude 6 earthquake that struck Alaska yesterday on Thanksgiving. So it was a Quakesgiving for more than 300,000 people in Alaska near Anchorage. Here we see these seismic waves propagating out from that event. So they have big earthquakes there. There's been magnitude 7s, magnitude 8s, even magnitude 9. So magnitude 6 isn't the end of the world or anything. It's certainly a big earthquake though, and one to be aware of because there's about a 5% chance that could be a foreshock. Interesting thing about this one is that we haven't had any good aftershocks from that magnitude 5 or 4. They've all been very low magnitude, which is quite bizarre. Here we see the surface waves propagating from that event. This is all the different seismic stations we have for the United States, Canada, Alaska, even a few there in Mexico. So these waves are propagating across the entire continent, but we're only seeing the motion up, motion down. Where we have those seismic stations, motion up is red, motion down is blue. And so you get the initial compressional wave, and then there's a shear wave, and then you get the surface waves coming in after those shear waves. There they are, surface waves propagating out across the United States. People here in the continental US are not going to feel that energy. This is just a magnitude 6. Even if that had been a magnitude 9, you wouldn't feel that. But these very ultra sensitive seismographs do pick up that ground motion. So we can see how that energy radiates out across the globe, which is quite interesting. And this earthquake, in addition to that magnitude 6.6 earthquake just about 12 to 14 hours before in Indonesia, occurred during that coronal hole high-speed stream impact when the solar wind density was low. And we put out a forecast for that 2 days before, that there was going to be a higher likelihood for magnitude 6 earthquakes. We hadn't had any for more than 2 weeks, and then we get 2 magnitude 6 plus quakes in less than 24 hours. We have that other trans-equatorial coronal hole going into a geoeffective position in a little bit more than a week's time. And that one has been connected to a whole bunch of big earthquakes, including that magnitude 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamchatka, Russia, back in July 29 of this year. So we could be looking at elevated earthquake activity after all this space weather, if that is to occur and the Earth gets super energized. So just be aware of that. So we have some very active solar activity almost certainly headed our way over the next couple weeks. And before we close out the video, we are going to do a quick sound healing for the solar plexus using this crystal singing bowl here. But before we do that, if you like this shirt that I'm wearing, this is official channel merch. It has Earth Evolution on the front and it has Boom Shakalaka on the back. This is available on my website, earthevolution.com/store. We have a whole bunch of different products here. So there's official channel merch, for example, the Boom Shakalaka shirt, which comes in banana and also watermelon sizes, small to 4XL, available for everyone in the United States. All the products are USA only. But there's also all organic herbal tea blends. These are the absolute best tea blends that you can buy. All the ingredients are organic from biodynamic farms, formulated by me, and it's only my dad and I that are maintaining this. So it's my efforts that started it, and now my dad is the one that's mixing, packing, and shipping. So it's really a group effort here. We also have, for example, my children's book, One Good Turtle, which I wrote quite a while ago, an excellent book on bullying. And this is a great Christmas gift. So if you have young ones in the family, this is one to give them. The illustrations are absolutely fantastic, as you can see. And this is also a good book for teenagers and adults. I've had a lot of older people say this book was awesome. This was incredible, brought me to tears. So you can pick this up from the website as well. All these things are available for anyone in the United States. And you can use the code THANKSSTEFAN, all one word, for 5% off going all the way till the end of December. So that's THANKSSTEFAN for 5% off your order. And I know that whatever you pick up, you're gonna absolutely love. So with that, let us get into our cosmic connection meditation, specifically focusing in on the solar plexus using this solar plexus singing bowl here. So I recommend you get a comfortable position, seated, standing, laying down, and to start to bring attention to your breath and to focus on just relaxing and also cultivating a deeper breath cycle rate. And you can sigh it out. Just relax. As the main energy center of our solar system rotates its activity towards us, so too will our own energy center within our body, the solar plexus chakra, start to energize and activate, making it an excellent opportunity to use that energy for any creative endeavors, athletic pursuits, to bring about new changes in your life, to amplify your biofield out, to radiate joy, love, compassion, peace to others. But you also need a place for this energy to go. If you just let that energy build without expressing, it can get nervous and excitable. So we work to harmonize these energies. Deep breaths. And draw your awareness to your solar plexus. You can place your hands there. You can just visualize a glowing light orb in the center of your chest, near your sternum. what do you choose to manifest? Visualize what you may want to bring into creation utilizing this solar energy. Feel the energy grow and build, and visualize the energy finding appropriate channels to express, moving out of your body into your biofield and extending out in all directions. Breathe. Thank you all so much for watching. We have a very dynamic couple weeks ahead of us, so I wish you the absolute best with that. Happy holidays, everybody, and I'll see you all very soon in future videos. I'll keep you up to date. So if you'd like to stay appraised, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. We cover everything that's happening here energetically, and as you see, we also go into the metaphysical and beyond. So hope to see you join in. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. I'll see you all in the next video.